Hey everybody, welcome back to Almost Sideways, a place for movie conversation. My name is Adam, and these are my daily notes where I have fun conversation with guests. Today's conversation, because Steven Spielberg has West Side Story coming out later on in the year. We're taking a journey with Spielberg by checking out some of his movies and reviewing them here and having a fun conversation about them. Today, we are talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark, starring Harrison Ford. Roll the intro. Again, if this is your first time to the channel, my name is Adam, and we talk all things movies here. And I would love for you to hit that subscribe button and join the conversation in the comments section down below. We have a very special guest, and that is Mr. Brett Doze. How are you doing today, my friend?
Very good. Yeah, glad to be on here. Excited to discuss a truly great movie.
And where can we find you on YouTube and social media?
Yeah, so you can find me on social media, Twitter. I'm at bdoze 2017. That's my personal kind of handle. And then I also have the podcast called Gilded Films. You can find us on Twitter there at Gilded Films, as well as pretty much any podcast network we're out there. We discuss the best picture race from each certain year and other movies that came out those years and have a lot of fun with it.
Nice. And all his links to his Twitter and his podcast are going to be in the show notes. Make sure you guys check him out and follow along. All right. So we're talking about Steven Spielberg, and we're talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark. When I reached out to you to be part of this journey with me, you were like, we got to talk about Raiders. Why did you pick Raiders specifically, and why does it kind of hold a kind of close place to your heart?
Yeah, Raiders is definitely my favorite Spielberg movie. It's one that I'm always excited to talk about. There's so many ways you could dive into it. I first discovered it actually when Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out in 2008.
Interesting way.
Yeah. So my dad loved the movies. I remember we saw a preview of that movie. And he's like, "Oh, those were the best. Like those were just the best." And he obviously loves Star Wars and things like that. But Indy came out. I was a little surprised. I'm like, "You always talk about Star Wars. Like this is kind of new to me. I'd heard of it before, but I didn't know it was such a big thing." And so I went to Walmart and with the little money I had at that age, I bought the box set of the first three on DVD.
Oh, yeah.
And ate them all up. And Raiders is one of those interesting movies where I'll have some series where like my favorites can change over time. Like when I first watched the Star Wars movies, my favorite was Return of the Jedi. Now I would say it's like Empire Strikes Back. But
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, Raiders has always been my favorite Indiana Jones, and it's never really been close. I think it's just an absolutely perfect example of what a blockbuster movie should be, even coming from 1981. Just completely entertaining, but also really artistic, and a lot of themes you can pull from it. Really extremely well shot, and I just think a fabulous directorial effort from Spielberg overall.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really happy to talk about this movie because this is, again, we shared kind of on our podcast this is one of my favorite movies of all time. This is in my top 100. It's solidified its spot after, especially rewatching. I'm like, it's got to be at least top 30, almost top 20. It's that damn good. It's not just this nostalgic watch for me because I grew up watching these ones. Actually, I remember because in 1995-ish, when I was about 5 years old, I actually got Star Wars on VHS. So of course I ate those movies up. We watched one a night, on the this. And we went to watch the re-releases in theaters. Big thing from my childhood. And then we watched Indiana Jones. And I always remember that I had to close my eyes at the very end of the scene when a melting happens. And I remembered that. And I was like, I rewatched it. I was always scared, even after I knew I couldn't close my eyes anymore. I had to be a big kid now. And it kind of freaked me out. Then I was like, that's what I was scared. I had to close my eyes for. It's not that bad. And then I was like, I probably would have been scared. But anyway, this is watching these movies. It's funny you always said Raiders was your favorite, but I always kind of went back and forth between The Last Crusade and Raiders. The Last Crusade, it's kind of like the Return of the Jedi of the series. It's just like, it's ridiculous, crazy, over the top fun. You just can't help yourself but have a fun time. And then they got Temple of Doom, which is kind of the more darker entry in the franchise. And it's basically plays out just like the original Star Wars trilogy, but that middle chapter maybe not be the best one in the franchise, like the Empire may be. But it's one of those ones that I have a fun time watching, and I'm actually decided now that they released them on 4K, which I think this is I don't know if you have this yet, but this I've tracked. My wife actually had a long day at work, and she came home and she's like, here, I got you this. I was like, are you kidding me? She's like, yeah, I know you wanted it. You mentioned it. I was like, that's a lot. I was like, it doesn't matter. You worked. I was like, oh, thank goodness. But this is a really cool box set. And watching it on 4K, the Raiders on 4K this last week, man, it's actually really really crisp, a lot better than I thought it would be. But it's really cool to sit down and watch this movie and show my daughter for the first time, because she just turned 7, so she's just at the age where she really starts liking action and adventure. At first, she said, "This is going to be boring," but sure enough, she was glued to it. So I'm like, yeah, I know it's not boring. Your dad has taste.
Absolutely. That's amazing. I saw that box set and I was watching it. I just rented it online. And I was like, gosh, this looks so good. I actually thought about that. I was like, I can't imagine how this looks in 4K, because this looks amazing just streaming the movie. So that's amazing.
Yeah, I'm always kind of skeptical. I'm a bargain hunter, so I like to try to find the deals, like try to find, where can I go and stuff like that, and try to find the best possible thing I can. But my wife brought it home. I was like, oh, I kind of felt guilty. I was like, we should. No, I was like, nope. She's like, she told me to keep it, and I'm not taking that back. It's too dang good. I love it. But anyway, watching on 4K, it's super crisp and everything. I really like the set. I haven't dug in too much in the other movies quite yet. I'm looking forward to doing that soon. But Raiders for sure is one of those ones that the introduction to Indiana Jones alone, them walking through the jungle, and you can kind of see him, but you don't see his face quite yet until they go into the tomb there. It's a great, one of the better character intros, I think. And it would have been totally different if a different character, I think, what was it, Brett Selleck?
Tom Selleck.
Brett Selleck. I knew it was Selleck, but I was like, that didn't sound right. Tom Selleck was supposed to be Indiana Jones. That would have been complete. It probably wouldn't be as good, but because something about Harrison Ford and his charisma is just extremely watchable. Yeah,
it's almost like Spielberg knew this was going to be an iconic character just because the way they visualize him and his imagery. First we've got that shot of him like in the jungle. He's kind of in the shadows, and he turns around after snapping the whip, and he finally comes into view, and you're like, it's Han Solo.
No, right?
But he has that image of like his shadow on the wall at Marion's bar, and he has where the sun sets in the background in Egypt, and he's putting the hat back on. Watching it today, it's like, oh, this is so iconic, but it's just wild to think about, like, this was the first movie in a franchise that might have been a hit, but it's almost like they knew that this was going to be a huge character that would last the test of time.
Yeah. And it's are you a Han Solo guy or an Indiana Jones guy? Which one's the better one?
I'm more of an Indy guy, just because I'm more of an Indiana Jones guy overall than a Star Wars guy. Bold take, I guess. But yeah, Indy by hair. I do love Han, though. Han is my favorite Star Wars character, and obviously Harrison Ford is great. So
yeah. I think I'm just a Harrison Ford guy, because even like I joked about, like Air Force One was another iconic movie for me. I used to watch that. So it's not iconic, but it's one of those ones I just rewatch over and over again. And I'm trying to watch like even like little movies that you don't think would be a good like Harrison Ford performer, like not Scent of a Woman. Oh my God, Working Girl. That's the movie I was thinking. Yeah. Working Girl. Yes, that's not Harrison Ford there. But even Working Girl, like he's really good in it, and other little films like Frantic and other movies that he's been in. He's really just a talented actor, and he haven't got really any recognition for his acting. But he has two of the more iconic characters of all time with Indiana Jones and Han Solo. So, so go ahead.
I would completely agree. I love Harrison Ford. I agree. He hasn't gotten as much recognition as I think you would probably think with a guy from Harrison Ford. I mean, you look at him, he has one Oscar nomination after all these years. And so I completely agree with that.
I mentioned all these other movies, but The Fugitive is also another really good like performance there too. And we were just recently watched that, and man, that guy is so. My wife never seen it before, and she was glued to the screen because of because of the story and of Harrison Ford himself. So,
oh yeah.
So we're talking about Raiders here, and we're talking about some of our. Of course, we have to talk about Harrison Ford like we've been doing. But what's when you're thinking Raiders of the Lost Ark? What's a scene that's immediately what you think of?
I immediately go to the opening sequence. Just that whole sequence of walking through the jungle and going into the kind of like the temple there, whatever it is, and finding the artifact and going through all these booby traps and trying to escape everything. Because I just think it's one of the greatest intros I've ever seen, because it tells you what you're in for from the get-go. Yeah. It tells you like it kind of establishes like this is who is supposed to be the good guy. This is what he does. He's going to find these artifacts, and he's kind of a badass too. So
who hates snakes?
Yeah, who hates snakes? But yeah, it just totally, it lets you know what you're in for, and it's just so exciting from the get-go. There are a lot of great scenes throughout this movie, but that one just sticks out because it gets going from the start in a way that I think totally works. Why introduce us with a bunch of exposition? We'll get to that later. Let's give you a little bit of taste of what this guy is all about. Let's show you why he goes and does what he does.
Yeah. Definitely that opening sequence alone is great. I don't know if I'm remembering something that happened in that scene when the guy got like the one guy, his little hench, Alfred Molina's character, had all the spiders on him. Did he originally pee in his pants during that sequence? Because I remember him peeing. I vividly remember it. And then on the fork I was watching, I was like, did they cut that scene out? Like they cut they threw it under the floor and they cut it out before the water hit them. I'm like, wait, am I imagining something? Like I don't know.
I don't recall it, but I wouldn't doubt it. He definitely seems like the kind of character who would do that.
Especially, I don't know why that just it's kind of one of those weird things you remember different things that happen. Maybe it's my mind playing tricks on me. But anyway, some of my favorite scene in the movie was actually an improvised scene. I love when they're going through the marketplace and he's looking for Marion and all the different baskets, and he comes across this guy wielding a sword. And I guess the legend of Indiana Jones goes, is Harrison Ford was actually not feeling well that day, and he actually decided to not have a fist fight with this guy. He just pulled out his gun to shoot him there, and they loved it so much that it's like, let's keep it in. That's going to be a great moment. Yeah. So I love that moment. It's a really quick one, but another one that if I'm thinking of the movie, the one I really think of is when they're actually in the that little the room with the staff and everything, and the light, and they're showing where they go, and then they get lower down into the pit. That's another one where like he's with all the snakes. They're already established. We talked about in the Jurassic Park episode that Steven Spielberg kind of establishes certain character traits pretty well, and that pays off later. The whole line about I hate snakes, it pays off. Like of course that room is gonna be covered with snakes and everything. That's just how they do it. So that's another sequence that I really like, when they go down and there's a pit of snakes and they see the ark there, and they see it for the very first time on camera. That's some of my favorite little moments in this movie. There's so many other great moments to go along with it. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that scene too, and the scene with the sword guy. That is still so funny to this day. I laugh audibly every time, and it's honestly one of the more satisfying movie deaths, I think, because the guy's just like waving his sword, just like, this guy, like, who is this guy?
Yeah,
and then
this guy, really?
Like, you're done. So yeah, I love that too.
Yeah. So we always do those little those rankings of different things. The highest wars, the guys always talk about when they deep dive movies. I think we kind of established that. I think it's Harrison Ford is probably one of the highest wars. The big one was Tom Selleck was supposed to be it, and I cannot visualize a big mustache on Indiana Jones at all. But if we were to exclude Harrison Ford in the movie, who else would be kind of an irreplaceable character in this one?
Yeah, that's tough. I think
that's where it gets tough. Yeah.
Yeah, it gets very tough. My favorite character aside from Harrison Ford and Nitti is Sallah. I think he's kind of a great supporting role. It's become problematic over time because it's a Welshman, white guy playing an Egyptian character. But I think he's a great character. I also think Paul Freeman as Belloc is fantastic, just because there's a lot of villains in this movie, but there's those main three. He, in my opinion, by far stands out the most. I mean, I know you've got the guy who, has his torture methods and whatnot. He's kind of creepy and maybe a little bit goofy, but Belloc is perfect. Yeah. He's the villain. He is the villain of the movie. And I think Paul Freeman plays him extremely well.
Nice. Yeah. Other than those ones, we have to talk about Karen Allen too. Like she's really good as Marion Ravenwood, and she was actually one of my favorite movie bartenders. She's a no nonsense. She'll drink her patrons under the table if they put a bet up on her and stuff like that. So it's a really cool character. Pretty. There's times where she's kind of the damsel, but she also I feel like she can hold her own at times too. So it's pretty cool little character. I think she's really good. Obviously, she comes back in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Their whole relationship back there. So I enjoyed when they revealed that she was going to be in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I got actually super excited because at least we see another female lady come back or another character come back from another movie. So I thought that was pretty cool. I was actually super excited back in 2008 when that came out. So how about the worst performance in this movie? The worst performance.
Yeah, this one was also kind of tough. I don't think there's like a ton of bad performances here, but the one that kind of stuck out to me, and I don't know if it's so much that it's so bad, so much as it's inconsequential, is this guy, Wolf Collar, who plays Dietrich. He's like kind of the main top like German officer that's always kind of with Belloc, and it just doesn't always work for me because I think he's set up to be one of these big villains, but he just seems so forgettable. Like I never even remember his name. Sometimes I almost like forget he's there, but like at the end, like he's one of the three guys who gets his face burned off. So he's obviously meant to be this like, big consequential character in a way as a villain, but, and part of it is just maybe the way he's written, but I think it's just so wooden and nothing really happening there with that character. So of all of them, that's probably what I kind of pinpointed to as probably the worst performance in the movie.
They probably realized like maybe he's not. We already cast him, but let's just not give him so much to do anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Do that. That's probably what it is. Mine's I don't know. I was watching it. It's really hard to pick something up for the worst performance without like trying to be like nitpicky.
Yeah, right.
I kind of fell upon Salah's wife, his wife in the movie. Yeah, it's like her line delivery is just pretty much like this is the line, talked it out, like didn't even like give it like she's such a small character. She's only appeared in a couple of scenes, but I'm like, whoa, that didn't sound like you were just like, come on, this is what the line is. So I think if I was listening, because especially when they first introduced the monkey in there, and he's like, "Oh, what's this?" She's like trying to explain, get it out of here, type of thing. And yeah, she was just not very not good line delivery there. So I would probably say, unfortunately, I would have to pick his wife in this instance. So
yeah, that's a good pick.
Yeah. Well, who's Nicolas Cage playing? Who's Nick Cage playing in this movie? This is one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, I love it. The one that just automatically stands out to me is Tote, the kind of German torture guy who grabs the medallion and burns his hand. Just because, one, Nick Cage doing a German accent, a heavy German accent, totally down to watch that. And two, like when he does grab the medallion, he does that, like I would love to see that Nick Cage scream in that moment. So I think that would be really funny. He's probably too tall or too big of a guy to play it, because Toad is kind of a smaller guy who has a weird demeaning presence. But as far as the performance itself, I would totally dig seeing Nick Cage take that on.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that either. I was thinking about this category, and I was like, Belloc would be pretty interesting because there is some way that you can have him kind of do some crazy freakouts, especially near the end of the movie. I also think that if you're just going to have him appear for a little small role, you have him be that Alfred Molina's character at the beginning of the movie. And then you would, for sure, do not cut him peeing his pants. That's what you do.
Yeah, I thought of it. Another minor one I thought of was the guy that Marion drinks under the table in her bar in the first scene.
I actually like that a lot. I like that a lot.
You'd have to probably throw some sort of dialogue in there with the case, but just like seeing him like do the whole pass out thing and whatnot, I think that'd be really funny too.
That'd be funny too. Or if you're just like completely like, he just wants to do a cameo in this movie, have him be the sword wielder, just do the sword and get shot like that. Like, you do a close up on his face, like it's Nick. Oh, he's dead already. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for coming. That'd be pretty crazy. We already talked about our best scene in the movie. Was there any other scenes that like? Yeah, this is one of my favorites too.
Yeah, you mentioned the map room scene. I love that one as well. I also love the scene where Indy is fighting the big guy while Marion is stuck in the plane. The suspense level in that scene is just unreal. I mean, even watching it today, I'm just kind of like on the edge of my seat, like, oh, she's got to get out. She's got to get out. They've got to get away, and he's got to destroy this big guy. And yeah, that's the suspense and kind of almost frightening nature of that scene is just amazing.
Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, that's another scene that it's pretty kind of, when you think about this movie, it's another one that kind of should come to mind because it has great tension built up, and the way that guy goes out is very brutal, to say the least.
It's really funny because that's something they brought in like later too. Like they've always got to have like one death that is just like extreme. There's the guy that gets like smushed by the roller in the second film, and the guy with the ants in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It almost created a trend in a weird way. Yeah,
you got to have one over the top kill that just like unnecessarily gruesome. Like, yeah, exactly. It's a good point. Another scene that I like too. I think the ending is pretty dang cool. It's definitely different, especially when they do open up the Ark and you see all the angels there too. But then they actually are the demons, and they also everybody's face is melting off. That's pretty cool. And for what they were able to do back in '81, I think it still holds up pretty cool effect. You know, it's maybe it definitely would be a CGI effect now, where how the whole technology back then was held up really well. So I like that sequence a lot, and I also like when they're just like wielding the Ark and the Covenant through the big warehouse. That is another it's a really classic shot there, and how they ended the movie. Really Absolutely. Like that too. So.
100%.
Favorite minor character for you?
Yeah, this one, it was tougher than I thought it would, because I realized, there's a lot of characters in here that are just kind of there. They don't really have names. A lot of like soldiers and people digging at the site and whatnot. One that kind of stuck out to me was Mr. Katanga, the guy who drives this ship, because I don't know, he shows up for a short time. He kind of has a cool swagger about him. And
he's definitely
He just like, it's kind of like no questions asked. Like Salah's like, these are my friends. I need you to take care of them. And he's like, you got it. And, he tries his best. Obviously the Nazis come in and it doesn't go the way he expects, but he tries his best. He's there. He's a loyal guy. That's a guy you can trust. So I like Mr. Katanga.
Yeah, I like that too. That's pretty funny. It's a good call on that one. I'm going to go with Jock, the helicopter, the biplane pilot. He basically tells like, stop being a wuss. It's just a snake. He's my pet Reggie. Calm down. Yeah, this is how loyal of a friend Jock is. The guy had probably a 20-pound fish on his line, his little makeshift line at the beginning. He's like, oh, I guess I'm dropping that and I'm going to go help Indy now, I guess. Okay, cool. Like the guy was fishing, had something online. He had fish on, and he said, "Oh, bye, fish. I guess I won't eat today, but I'll save Indiana." So that's good. Yeah,
that's a great call as well. I love Jock.
Another category we do is the biggest douchebag in the movie. The guy that's like, yeah, that guy's pretty intolerable. Yeah. Any ideas for this character? This superlative?
There are actually a lot. I think there's a lot you could go with in this movie. I walked in fully expecting this to be the guy with the sword, because that's just the guy. He's showing off. That's the guy that all the other soldiers hate, and they're probably like glad that he got shot. But
I love it.
But a guy that I forgot about until this watch, and it's a very quick moment. But it's when the Nazis drive into the town. And Indy is hiding in that garage and they don't know he's there. There's a dog barking and the guy grabs a watermelon and throws it at the dog. And you hear the dog yelp. And I'm like, I'm a dog lover. I'm a dog owner. I'm like, that guy is a humongous douchebag. The dog's just barking. You have all these people around he's just doing what a dog does and you're going to throw a watermelon at him? Okay, you suck. So that guy stuck out to me.
Wow. Where was this again?
It's when it's after the big chase scene and Indy kind of evades him and goes into Cairo and all the locals kind of hide him. They pull up and it's not Dietrich, but it's that other German guy that's kind of always with him. There's just a dog barking at him and he just grabs a melon and just goes, and they don't show it, but you hear the dog yelping after he throws it. And it's like,
wow.
Yeah, you're a douche. So
yeah, that's a great call. Now I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch that and be like, wow, that guy. My dog is sitting right there actually, because that's the only way he's calm when he's a loyal podcast listener. Anyway, but yeah, that's crazy that I've never picked up on that. Now I have to go back and watch that again. Crazy. I guess I'm not going with someone super small, even though there's so many people. I think Belloq is kind of just like he's just out for personal gain. He's the obvious one for me, but it's just I can't get that out of my head. I was like, once when I thought about it, I was like, yeah, it's kind of that is you throughout the whole entire. We don't get to see just one little douchey moment you do, but it's like the whole entire. He's basically like, yeah, I'm gonna basically take everything that you did all the hard work for, Indy, and I'm gonna take it for my own credit, and I'm gonna basically make this pocket watch be worth something, just like I'm gonna make your bones be worth something. I'm gonna do the same thing. It's like, yeah, just like that character. Really awesome performance by the guy. He one of the highest wars. We're just talking about one of the best irreplaceable characters, but it's because he's kind of a douchebag. Yeah, that's what it is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was absolutely thinking about that too. The scene, especially the scene where he has Marion and he's like making her try on the dress and like drink them, and I'm like, you're a douche and you're a creep. So yeah, absolutely great call.
Yeah. That sequence is kind of uncomfortable. Pretty uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable when I was a kid too, because it was like, oh, that's skin. But now having more of the context to it, it's like, yeah, it's kind of an uncomfortable scene. And he is totally a D-bag for that scene alone. Yeah. Yep. Let's just see. There's other categories. What category? I forgot. I gave you the list. I can't remember. I don't have my list in front of me.
I think the other one you gave me was MVP.
Oh yeah, the MVP. Yes, the most valuable player of the film. Now, it doesn't have to be in the movie itself. It could be somebody behind the camera. I will start this one off. We kind of mentioned it for Jurassic Park. Got to go with John Williams. That Harrison Ford would probably be the MVP because it's a very iconic role. But John Williams has to be recognized on the podcast once again because his score is fantastic. I love his teamwork ups with Steven Spielberg. We'll eventually do E.T. I love that score as well. And, Jaws, all great scores that he does. And he's just one of the better composers. I love watching. What's great about his line of his music is that you can hum it. And you can go dun da da dun dun da dun, and you know exactly what I'm talking about because it's a John Williams score. He makes really compelling music, but also really simple for you to sing along to. So, got to go with John Williams here.
Yeah, that's
maybe
a
cheating,
great call. But not at all. That's a great call. And like it's a score. That theme itself is it's among my favorite of his works. And it's like if you just told someone, give me an action adventure score, he nailed it. So
yeah.
Yeah, this was probably the toughest category for me to pin down. I thought about Williams. I thought about Spielberg, Ford, even the cinematographer, Douglas Slocum.
Mm-hmm.
The one that I eventually settled on was the screenwriter, Lawrence Kasdan. Who the reason I went with him is because one, I think the screenplay is awesome, just for an action adventure film that also has depth. But I got to thinking about, to me, Raiders is just so far the best indie film. And, I got to look in and he's one that this was his only indie film. So I think that's part of the reason is he has such a big role. And obviously he wrote Empire Strikes Back the year before and whatnot. He was really big with those type of screenplays a lot of that time. So I went with him just because, delivering the dialogue and the story, not to show the story, that was largely George Lucas, but that screenplay for what I consider is definitely the best in the series.
Yeah, definitely. I great call on that one. The screenplay is really dang good, and it's not just an action film. It's a kind of a story that kind of relates to everybody. It gives you a little bit of action, gets you a little bit of drama, comedy, a little mixtures of genre in there as well. And Kasdan's really good, especially telling some darker moments in the film too, just like he did for Empire the year before. Really good underrated screenwriter. We don't really talk about too much today from some of his work. So good call. I like that. I like that call as well. Last category that we do is the least valuable player. The absolute worst of the worst. Now it could be something off camera, it could be on camera, whatever the case may be. I'm gonna probably go with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Okay. And the reason why I'm picking this was because you reintroduced Karen Allen's character as Marion Ravenwood come back, and you have Shia LaBeouf be Mutt Williams in the movie too. Now, when I was super excited for this movie when it came out. However, I haven't rewatched it really since. I actually bought it too. I bought it and had the poster. I was like super in kind of like, I got Phantom Menace. I really liked it in the theater, but then like you walk out and think about it for a couple of days later. It's like that kind of was not that good. and then I forgot that it wasn't that good. Then I bought it on Blu-ray. And then I was like, yeah, I remember it. It's not actually that good. That the whole ending of the movie is kind of not my favorite. So, and then they kind of ruined those awesome kind of iconic characters. So I'm nervously excited for I'm curious to see what they do with Indiana Jones 5. Apparently there's some set photos of Harrison Ford still doing the Harrison Ford things, being on they rolled up the bank truck to him and dumped a bunch of money on him to do Indiana Jones 5. So we shall see how that is. But for me, bringing back some iconic characters and kind of just relying super heavily on visual effects for King of the Crystal Skull, it kind of puts a little like tarnish on the Indy's name a little bit, even though Raiders is such a great film. I can't really pick anybody for Raiders specifically, but like the legacy of Indiana Jones is kind of tarnished now because of Crystal Skull.
Yeah, I guess that's one good thing about like I was definitely not a proponent of having a fifth film, but that's one of the good things about it is that at least hopefully we end on a better note than that one. So
yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, my LVP, my one that's kind of within the movie is Army Intelligence, because they're like they come in and granted, if they're not stupid, then we don't get the movie we get. So maybe I shouldn't. But they come in and they're like, yeah, so the Nazis really, really want this. There's something going on with this. And they're just like, should we send this like random college professor to go do this and not like do any sort of like mission or team? I'm not saying going guns blazing, but like they did not do any planning whatsoever for this, quote unquote mission. And so on that, and then I totally agree with you. I love that shot where they're putting it in like with all the different boxes, but you have this thing that just obliterated a small army. And you're stacking it alongside like thousands of other things, like it's just another random, like, I don't know. If granted, they probably just didn't believe Indy. That's probably what happened. But if I had heard that, I'd be like, okay, let's build a bunker for this thing because we don't want anybody like spy coming in and taking this. So yeah, Army Intelligence, I wouldn't say they were the smartest characters in this movie. Again, that's kind of the point at times as well. But another one I had kind of outside of the movie is IMDb, because
there we go.
they list this movie as the official title as Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and that is one of my like meaningless, just like pet peeves.
That's actually something I forgot to mention, but yeah, I've kind of pet peeved about that too. Yeah,
like the movie is called Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's that whole Indiana Jones thing that came later, and so I don't know. It's not a big deal, but it just completely drives me up a wall. So that's how IMDb has it listed, and I noticed that yesterday, and it's kind of made me upset. So
even on the 4K box set, you can see Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. So that's how it always is now because of the other ones.
Got to brand it.
Yeah. Oh well, that's kind of like this whole Star Wars. After they put Episode 4, and they're like, wait, what? Everything else got branded because now we want to do prequels. Yeah, something like that, So anyway, there's one thing too I forgot to mention. Now that you bring it up too, the Army Intelligence thing. So I was watching. We binge watched The Big Bang Theory. I'm not sure if you ever watched this show or not. The group really loved the show. And Sheldon's character wants to show his girlfriend, Amy Farrah Fowler, about the show. And she watches it, and she's like, I'm surprised you didn't see it. And so he's like, see what? He's like, if Indiana Jones wasn't in the movie, the same exact thing would have happened anyway. It's just Indiana Jones was there. He's like, what? And it's just like, he's like, now the movie's ruined for me. So the whole time I was watching this movie, I thought about like, there's Indiana Jones didn't have necessarily be there. The same thing would have happened. The arc would have been at a different spot at the end.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever thought about that. Yeah.
I don't watch The Big Bang Theory, but I have heard about that episode and that theory. I have some thoughts about it. I I think there's a point there. Yeah, obviously, like Indiana Jones did play a role. He found out where the Ark was from the map room. They probably would have done that eventually. We agree. There are things that it probably would have been the same way. Would the Ark have ended up in the U.S. if he wasn't there? Maybe not. Maybe the Nazis would have came later and picked it up. I'm not sure. That's something you could dive into. But the thing I get to, though, is that I think part of that is kind of the point of the movie. I think what Indy kind of learns throughout this movie is that there are some things that like humans don't need to get that involved with. And there are some things that, I don't need to swoop in and save the day all the time. There's a lot of themes you can pull out from this movie. When I was in college, I actually wrote a paper for this where I made this wild argument that with this being 1981 and like Reagan presidency starting and kind of ramping up like Cold War tensions again, I kind of saw the Ark as almost like a reflection of nuclear weapons and nuclear power, because they talk about how, Sala says, Indy, this is something that we shouldn't mess with, and even Brody's like, I don't know if this is something that humans should dive into. And they go and test it on a secluded island. And so that's probably not what they were going for, but I think that's part of going back to your original point, I think that's just part of the movie is that, maybe Indy might have been inconsequential, but part of it is that, there are some things that we shouldn't dive too deep into and that, we should think about before we go blazing into it. So,
yeah, that's a great point. Artificial intelligence. Have we not seen Terminator? Or anyway.
Exactly.
No, but yeah, that's a freaking awesome little side piece there. That's pretty really exciting. They probably weren't necessarily going for that, but it's cool to see the comparisons that you can draw comparisons between the two. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah. Anyway, with that said, Big Bang Theory aside, it's a dang good movie. I don't care what anybody else says. I love this movie. It's a great movie. I guess, and any last things you want to say about it before we wrap things up?
No, I agree. An awesome movie. Even if you get into the nitty gritty and you find things wrong with it, I think it's vastly entertaining from start to finish. And sometimes that's all you can ask for a movie. And I've always thought like if extraterrestrials came down to Earth and like you were going to show them one movie that kind of represents American cinema, Raiders is one that would be on my short list because, it's not a classic like artsy film like, maybe like a Casablanca or something like that, but it gets to some of that in addition to just the endless excitement and entertainment, which is something that I'm consistently entertained by it and find new things in it every time I watch it to this day.
So many moving parts in the background too that it has, like as we said, mixes different genres and different kind of film styles too. It's a really good film. Yeah, it's just thoroughly entertaining, and sometimes that's why we watch movies, is we want to shut off our brain and just enjoy the ride and experience that it goes on. Heck, this movie it's not just a franchise anymore. There's a Disneyland ride that's really amazing. There's been video games about it too. It's a cross-platform form of entertainment for this character as well. So Indiana Jones is why I'm a big film fan, because of Raiders of the Lost Ark. So yeah, like I said, love this film, and we'll be recording a podcast a little bit later about top 100 movies of all time. And this definitely easily is up there on my list because it's part of my childhood, part of my film journey too. So
absolutely. I love it.
Well, anyway, guys, what do you guys think about Indiana? Oh, sorry. What did you guys think about Raiders of the Lost Ark? I'm so used to now seeing it. That's how it is. Damn, man, I'm embarrassed now. What do you guys think about Raiders of the Lost Ark? Let us know in the comments section down below. Make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe to the video, and check out Brett's Twitter and also podcast down in the show notes. Make sure you guys show some love over there as well. Until next time, my name is Adam, and this has been Brett, and we will see you in the next one.